Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Join the Dog Pound on the road this season with True Fan Travel, an official fan experience partner of the Cleveland Browns. Travel to stadiums across the country with other Browns fans and experience the games like never before. This trip includes everything: a private charter flight, hotel, an all-inclusive tailgate, game tickets, boat party, transportation, and more. Cheer on the Browns in New Orleans and party with Cleveland Browns legend Kevin Mack. Visit TrueFanTravel.com today and reserve your ultimate Browns travel package.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisler, coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. Joined with me, as always, out in Cleveland, Ohio. We have Dustin. Dustin, Browns come away today with a loss, 34-13 to the Washington Commanders. Let's start with this. As everybody kind of joins in. This sucks. Not fun to talk about. I don't want to do a show. I don't want to talk about this. But we have to. We're here. It's a safe space for everybody, so let it out. Let it rip.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the Here We Go Brownies podcast. This is your therapy session for the next roughly 40 minutes to vent, get it out of your system. Allie, I thought last week would have been a wake-up call to this organization, to this football team, and we talked about it. Early in this game, the defense was playing the way, like you talked about, disguising, confusing the quarterback like we talked they should. And this game, it went off the rails. This is unexcusable for an NFL team with this much talent on it, period. I'm just going to say that. It's unacceptable for a team with this much talent to be playing the way they are. I think holistic changes need to happen. I think there are probably already conversations about that. I don't know what those are going to be. I got the chance to listen to some of, the play-by-play, and they even were like, I don't know what the answer is, but there's got to be change. I mean, there has to be changes. I mean, because if you expect to keep doing the same thing over and over again, we know what that is. That's called insanity, and expect different results. This team is not only losing, they're getting their ass kicked. I mean, they're not just losing, they're getting their ass kicked. Now, granted, the Commanders are a good football team. I mean, they wouldn't be 3-1 if they weren't, right? They wouldn't be 3-1 if they weren't. And they're 4-1 now. This team is they're lost. I guess that might be the best way to put it. But go ahead, Allie. I'm all ears.
They're not just losing. They are losers. They are acting like losers on the field. The demeanor, the lack of accountability, the lack of leadership, it is jarring. I mean, if you go to any company, any organization, go to, your local restaurant, anywhere, there is leadership. There is leadership at every level, right? There has to be, for any functioning organization to thrive or even do well or just stay above float. There has to be some leadership, right? That's just how it works. I don't see it. I don't know. This team is not just losing. You're right. They're getting their asses handed to them, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. They are losers. Losers.
By the way, did the Jaguars win?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so let me just put this in reality check for fans. We are tied for the worst record in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for a minute. We are tied for the worst record in the National Football League with the amount of talent on this team, with the amount being paid to the offensive players on this team and defense for that matter. You have the worst record in the National Football League. That's why I believe holistic changes need to happen, because you have this much talent and you have the worst record in the National Football League. Come on. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable in an organization. If you're a business, if you're losing that much money, they fire the president or the CEO, or they make holistic changes. What is that?
The team lead, whoever it is, has to be held accountable. And I think this was the game where it's the type of game where you see changes made on Monday in Berea. Frankly, somebody, and I don't know who, and I'm not going to speculate who, but somebody has to be held accountable. I think, I mean, I'm gonna say it, like, obviously Deshaun Watson it's bad from every level, from his level of play. I think that's just very evident. If you have eyeballs, you can tell, like, this is not a good, he's not playing like a good quarterback. Two, terrible from his leadership on the field. I mean, we saw it last week where he kind of got on DeJuan Jones. We liked that. We liked that he was trying to hype him up and make him better, but like just the body language, the demeanor doesn't look right. And three, just like just not wanting to be there. It seems there's he doesn't have, like, his throws don't look right. He's not making the right decisions. I mean, let me pull up this here that was put on the screen. This Browns offense today, averaging 3.4 yards per play, 7 sacks on the day, and they were 0 for 11 on third down. 0 for 11.
I think it was 0 and 12. I think
0 and 12. Okay, yeah, I probably took a picture before that.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I think this was 7 minutes to go in the fourth. You mentioned this is unacceptable for a football team that has this much talent. I'm going to take it a step further. This is unacceptable for a football team, regardless of your talent. I think if this was the 2017 Browns, the 0-16 Browns, I would still say that this kind of performance is unacceptable with any level of talent. These are professionals out there, and big changes need to be made because this is egregious.
Think about this, Allie. There's something gone awry. And what I mean by that is Las Vegas puts odds out based on talent and where they think the game will fall at the end. They had the Commanders by a field goal roughly in this football game because the talent on each side of the ball was probably pretty equal in their mind today based on Browns injuries, all those things. The Commanders are hot, right? Like they analyze all that, right? They don't say a team's going to lose by 20 some points today in that analytics because the analytics shows that's not supposed to happen based on what is on the field. And like I said, I went to Vegas. I got to see it. The problem I have with Deshaun Watson, just pure and simple, Ollie, it's just up and down. Like he played his ass off at Las Vegas, and we knew the offensive line issues were there. But then he has a down game here. It's just too much up and down. There's not consistency.
The line played well. You had Jed out there. You had DeJuan Jones. You had your outside of Wyatt Teller, obviously, your starter on the interior of the offensive line. This is not an offensive line issue. So I know everybody coming into this game prior to this game was like, oh, the offensive line is such a mess. And like, yes, it was. But today was not an offensive line issue. It was a Deshaun Watson issue.
7 sacks on the day, right?
7 sacks. I mean, with that, not only the level of play on the field, the lack of leadership and accountability, but also look at the demeanor of the other players. Amari Cooper, I mean, yes, he's struggled this season so far, but even in this game, I watched several snaps where, I mean, he barely walked off the line of scrimmage when the ball was snapped. It just the lack of effort there. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much because I'm not in that locker room and I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the relationships that these guys have, obviously, but from just what I can tell sitting on my couch is doesn't look like these skill position players necessarily like want to be out there right now. They don't look motivated. This is not an offense that you're like, you know what, no matter what, 3rd and 17, they still have a shot. When they go out on first downs, I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to be 3rd and long here and we're going to punt the ball away. I mean, maybe I should take the bet every single week that the first drive of the game is going to result in a punt or something like that because it's just it's very unmotivated from everybody else surrounding Deshaun Watson. And I mean, I'm willing to say it here on the pod. Like, I think that that's the problem. Like right now, he's the problem by far.
Well, and here's the problem even bigger than this. We're going into the tough part of our schedule. I mean, that's to me, even a more glaring thing. These games aren't going to get easier going forward. So that's why I say something holistically has to change in this organization come Monday. And at this point, analytically, the Browns have a very small window to make the playoffs now. So, by the way, making holistic change at this point ain't gonna hurt, right? It ain't gonna hurt. Whatever, you got to do something different because what you're doing now isn't working clearly. The one game you won this year was to a team that has the exact same record as you. So something's not working right. and they aren't closing games against the Raiders and the the Giants when they have that opportunity. They're not closing those games out because they have the opportunity. This team doesn't have that killer instinct, right, in that fourth quarter to put it away. So, yeah, I think holistic changes. And I got to tell you, based on the plays I left, you've got a lot of angry Browns fans right now that it said, I expected, to your point, Ali, and I know you said, the 0-15. I expect the Browns to play like crap when they have no skilled positions or a good offensive line back then when they were 0-15 or 0-16 and 1-15. You know what? I can give them a free pass because guess what? They don't have really good players, right? They just aren't good players compared to other players in the NFL. This team is full of talent. That's the problem to me. I mean, I expect more of this football team. Heck, I would be okay with 500 right now with this football team based on you lose one here or there because you didn't close out. But 1-4, that's not good.
No, I mean, one glaring difference, and I mean, we all lived through it, guys. We're all Browns fans here. We all watched 1-15, 0-16. But if you have to compare those teams to today and the performance you get, yeah, Dustin, we can all agree like this team's much better than we were then. I mean, clearly, obviously, of course, nobody's going to deny that. But what you can say is that the 1-15, 0-16 teams, I mean, I remember watching it. They played with a lot of effort. They still wanted to go out and win those games, and there was a lot of games where they were still alive in the fourth quarter. They could have come away with it. They just weren't good enough to do so. I mean, this team just, I mean,
this
can't
team
do
looks
anything.
checked out. They look
It's
checked
just
out.
totally checked out. Like mentally, they are not. I mean, you mentioned playoffs. That, frankly, I don't even think should be in the conversation at this point. This is very clearly not a playoff team right now. I mean, Dustin, as of last week, the Browns held the number 5 overall draft pick. They keep playing like this. They're picking number 1 overall. Like that is where we're at. It's bad. This is really bad. Agreed. Something has to change. We'll see tomorrow if that is anything. But
it makes for a very interesting show on Wednesday to see
yeah, it
what
does.
happens in Berea
I
between
mean,
Monday and
it's hard to
Tuesday.
watch. It's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. It's hard to talk about. This isn't fun. I mean, I see everybody here in the comments is equally pissed off, upset, checked out, don't want to watch. We all get it. It's just we've got to come on and do a show about it, but it's never fun to do it. Before we
But
turn
we're
it over,
here.
yeah,
But we're here because we're fans, and that's
oh,
what
of
this
course,
show was. This is what that show was built on, Allie. When you started it 4+ years ago, it's a show by the fans for the fans because that's who it is, right? I mean, that's who we are. So
yeah, I get it. Sucks. It sucks. No other way to put it. Guys, we want to give a shout out to our friends over at Stadium Mustard, Lorello Vineyards, Teresa's Pizza, Hartville Marketplace and Flea Market, and also City Barbecue. I'd like to turn it over to the defensive side of the ball. First couple of drives here defensively, actually first half, I think that they were playing pretty well for the most part. My thing is I'm just stunned by the number of missed tackles consistently week in and week out. It's undisciplined football. I think that talent is really the driving force here. They're able to make plays because they have such good talent. It's not because I don't think that this Jim Schwartz scheme right now is the answer, right? I'm not saying like get rid of Jim Schwartz, throw everything out, but I mean, we need to get back to basics. And I think that's with every aspect. When one thing kind of goes awry, of course, the rest is going to unravel. Last year when things were going well for this team, everything was buttoned up. It was good. It was fun to watch. Now we're just seeing a whole crapshoot of football. But defensively, I think we can't rely on this defense to stop the run. That has been an issue for as long as we've been podcasting. The Browns defense can't stop the run. Dustin, why is that?
again, I don't. Here's what. Back to your scheme, like right. I mean, we're getting gashed with the run, and obviously we fixed some of those problems on the interior of the defense, right? But the problem I have, it goes back to what you just brought up, tackling. I think this team might be near dead last in the NFL at tackling, like missed tackles. I think if there's a stat out there, I think the Browns are near the league in missed tackles. So guess what? That all starts with the defensive line. The next safety net at your linebacker position, your safeties. If you're not tackling an open space and you're giving up those gash plays, it hurts everything from the run game to down the line. I don't know why this was happening in Las Vegas. It is seeped into Washington. This team can't frickin' tackle. They can't tackle. And I don't know what the hell is going on, but they can't tackle. I mean, I'm sitting here watching this game and I'm like, why are we not tackling? We're just not like, I don't get it. Like it infuriates me because that's the biggest thing I see, Allie, is just missed tackles week after week now. And it's not getting better. It seems like it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is this team has kind of last year anyways, been uncomfortable playing zone defense, really kind of made a living last year, living in man with some disguises, things like that would drop into zone. But I think right now, like, it's what we need. This team needs to play a little bit more zone defense. The organic pressure from the front four, it's not, Browns are getting home. I mean, right now, I know Miles is dealing with his feet situation, but he's still not making that big of an impact, and partly because opposing quarterbacks are getting the ball out so quickly. Obviously, you can't control that, and good on them for being able to do so. But that's also a reflection of our defensive backs. They're able to get the ball out so quickly because these guys are open, which tells me, maybe the scheme isn't really playing to the strengths of the players. So I think that the Browns are just getting beat in so many different ways. I'd be interested to see if Jim Schwartz can make those adjustments, what that's going to look like. And unfortunately, that is one thing that Jim Schwartz is known for, is he is unwilling to make those adjustments, not only in game, but just midweek or whatever, leading up to the opponent. He's a little bit stuck in his ways. Last year, that was a good thing. So far this year, it's not necessarily a good thing at all.
Well, and I think, look, this defense was built to kind of go against the Lamar Jacksons of the world, right? They'll, in space, keep him in check. Where the hell was the guy today on Daniels when he would gash us and do end arounds and get 20 or 30 yards on a run? Like, there was nobody home. Does that make sense? Like, and then I'm sitting there watching, okay, a 280-pound, 300-pound guy trying to chase him down is not the answer, because the defensive lineman pulling off of his block at that point to go try to get Daniels is a lost cause in this football game. I'm like, who's not staying home and keeping a spy on Daniels? Because it felt like at times he would just be like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to give it to me, I'm going to just bust out and go get 20 yards and run down the field here. And he did it over and over again. I'm like, you're not adjusting. He's doing it over and over in this football game. Well,
it seems to me that the linebackers, our linebacking core from JOK on, I mean, obviously you're missing Jordan Hicks in this game, but the linebackers are, I don't want to say making the wrong reads, but they're just not in the right spot.
That's what I'm saying. In the wrong position.
It's just not there. They're either over pursuing or they're not being aggressive enough. And that's leading to quarterbacks escaping the pocket, making big plays downfield or with their legs, or also just being able to completely, just carve you up in the middle of the field. So I don't know. I think there were some bright spots with this defense today, but overall, it's just starting to really, really unravel. And somebody's going to be held accountable for that. I don't know when. This does seem like a game, like I said, where changes could be made tomorrow in Berea, or we just keep doing what we're doing and we keep having the same conversation over and over and over again. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Western Reserve Distillers and 5 Iron Golf. And don't forget our friends at Believeland Landscaping and Pressure Washing, Lady Caroline Cruise Ship, and also Greater Cleveland Aquarium. Some really cool things in Northeast Ohio for you and the family to go check out.
If you need to relieve some of that frustration and go to something fun, check out any of our sponsors, because we couldn't do the show without them. But yeah, it's a little crazy, Allie. Like, I'm sitting there watching this game and I'm like, oh, it's 10-3. Like, they'll adjust. And then it just, like, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they'd make a change at quarterback? Let me just throw that question out.
Yeah, they have to. So I don't know. I don't know. I'll say that. Let's start there. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right. You're not Andrew Berry, but if you were in that seat, would you make a change?
Honest to God, given the demeanor of Deshaun Watson in several instances today, I've never been a coach at any level of any sport, but I would probably like to think that I would have made a change there. I think for several reasons, Deshaun Watson is just clearly and obviously underperforming, right? We know that, but can't get out of his own way, can't get out of his own head. It's a big problem. We've got Jameis Winston, we've got Dorian Thompson Robinson. Put him in there. I think we can, as fans, all say the Deshaun Watson experience, it's not working out. And I mean, honestly, like I think I'd like to at this point just like to see Jameis. I don't want to see this every single week. And one thing I do want to say is I'm very, very excited that David Njoku is back today. I'm very excited for Nick Chubb to return. However, they're not the answer. They're not going to fix this at all.
They're not going to save us. They're not
They're
going
not
to save us, right?
I don't know what saving looks like other than a very dramatic and drastic change across the organization. And I don't know what that looks like, but Nick Chubb, as much as we love him and cannot wait to see him back out there, just know that he is not the answer because running the football today really wasn't the problem. They were able to do it in some chunks. It is throwing the football. That is the issue.
Yeah, and like you said, like if you make a change at quarterback, you can at least see what you have, right? At the end of the day, right? Because if this experiment is nearing the end of its tenure in Cleveland, which it may be, you have to at least see what you have in your backup quarterbacks. Jameis Winston, which you paid a pretty good price, not the price that you paid for Deshaun Watson, but you paid a pretty good price for him to be your backup quarterback. And you definitely drafted DTR to see what he's made out of.
Sure.
Quite frankly, I know it's preseason, but DTR looked like he grew a lot from year 1 to 2, from what I could see, the way he read defenses, the way he played on the field. Sometimes you just have to make a change. It's tough. You don't want to do it. You don't want to admit you screwed up. But sometimes you just have to take a good old-fashioned humble piece of pie and say, look, we have to do something. Like, clearly this is not working, right? You have to make a change. And so, it'll be interesting to see the smoke signals coming out of Berea tomorrow after this plane lands tonight, coming back from Washington, D.C. It's, I don't know. Again, something's got to change. I just don't know what, right?
And I see this comment here. Aaron says that changing quarterback isn't going to change a thing. And I want to say this. I actually do agree with this. I know that we said that I'd like to see Jameis Winston. I would like to see DTR. I'd like to see a change. But the current state of this team, like it's not just a quarterback issue. If something is going to change, like drastically, if we can somehow turn this in a different direction and have any shot of anything, I think that there are some very drastic changes that need to be made within the organization, top down. I think everybody, and I know Dustin, we've said this like on every show, and I'm kind of getting really sick and tired of talking about it, but really take a look in the mirror and figure something out at every level. Position coaches, the players, obviously, the head coach, the coordinators, everybody in the front office, change something. It's not doing it. I don't know. I don't know. And also what's frustrating isn't just the product they're putting on the field. Well, obviously that's the most frustrating, but like just the lack of discipline, the lack of being prepared, the being unmotivated. It is, I'd rather just not watch it if this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, like I said, I just want to see competitive football, right? At the end of the day, we know it's tough to win in the National Football League. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But this is contagious now, right? That's 3 losses in a row, right? We haven't seen this in quite a few years, right? This is not something we're accustomed to in the Stefanski-Barry era of losing multiple games in a row. So I just want to see competitive football out there. And more importantly, I want to see competitive football when I know my playmakers are good players, right? I mean, these are guys that are elite or have been elite at some time in their career. Amari Cooper, right? Njoku, his best year last year, right? He hasn't fallen off the wagon. Like, he's still a great tight end. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like his 15th year in the league and we signed him to a free agent deal because, we paid him. That's not the kind of players we have on this team. These are players that there's some Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers on this team. Like, this team is better than their record. They just are, right? I mean, they just, because they showed it last year. And I always go back to last year. There was a team that had 5 different starting quarterbacks and still found a way to get 11 wins on the board, right? Against a team like the Niners, who ends up being in a Super Bowl that year. Teams that you probably shouldn't have beat, but you did, right? Because you overcame adversity and you won. And I don't see that, as Ali and I like to say on the show, the give a damn in this team. I don't see it. And you're right. I mean, when you see a guy walking up to the line,
Yeah.
in the field position, you're like, they're kind of just going through the motions, right? That's what you call it. But this is what you see from a team that's in week 15, 16, 17. That's when you see a player going through the motions that doesn't want to get hurt, right? Knows he has to be out there. He's got to play, but he's not going to probably go lay the biggest hit on a guy in a game because
I'll just gonna collect a paycheck and be done,
right.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting. Dustin, what do you think? What is the answer? Let's just say that somehow towards the end of the season, the Browns are able to make the playoffs. I know we're living in a crazy world right now, but put your imagination cap on and think,
Allie,
okay,
what did you start drinking before this show?
just hear me out on this. Just hear me out on this. Let's just say we live in a world where the Browns can turn it around and make the playoffs. My question to you is, what steps do they take from today until then to get to that point?
Well,
Go crazy.
I'll push back on one of our, I think it's Aaron that made the comment. I do think a quarterback makes a difference. And I'll explain why I think a quarterback makes a difference. Your quarterback is your leader of your football team, right? Everybody looks to him to rise all tides. And if a new quarterback goes out there and people rally around him and they play well around him, Allie, what does that say? They believe in him, right? They believe in him. I feel like some of these players have kind of checked out and some are checked in. I hate to say that, but I feel like some of these players are checked out and some are checked in. And what I mean by that, I don't know if they all have the same buy-in with what's happening with the offense, right? Defense, that's a pretty tight net group. Schwartz has got those guys, he's got those guys wired, right? Greg Williams said that the other night. I talked to him on Thursday night. He's like, these guys are buttoned up. They're ready to go, right? Like he goes, Greg will be fine. That defense will be fine because they're a pretty disciplined unit. I do think you got to make a change at quarterback because at the end of the day, that's who everybody kind of looks up to as a leader on the football team. And I don't know what I'd get out of Jameson Winston, but you know what I do know? He's a hype guy. He can get guys pretty hyped up and believing that they can win a football game every week. I wholeheartedly believe that because he's that kind of guy. He's a rah guy. And we always talk about sometimes this Browns team doesn't have enough of those vocal leaders in the locker room. I'm not worried about that with James. I'm like, he's going to go out there and be that rah guy. Does he want to be put in that position? Hell no. He doesn't want to be that guy that has to come in and do something in a situation because he's forced to do it. Nobody wants that, right? But if he runs with it, right, and excels at it, then yeah, you do want to get behind that guy. And you know what? I hate to say it, but they did that with Joe Flacco last year. This team didn't give up. The Browns brought in a quarterback, and what did every wide receiver, what did every offensive lineman on this football team do? They rallied around Joe Flacco. You saw the fist bumping. You saw the slap. I mean, they bought in, right? They were bought in that Joe Flacco is going to lead us somewhere great. I don't feel like this team feels like that is happening right now with what they have, that they're going to lead them somewhere. So I do believe the quarterback position, it starts at the top and it goes down. That's just the way it is.
Well, I think that's exactly it. It starts at the top, right? And I think that this entire team needs to decide which direction to go from here. Do you say, okay, we're done. Maybe we'll win 2 more games throughout the season. Let's shoot for a top 3 draft pick. Or say, hey, look at all this talent we have on the field, on this roster. Let's maybe make a couple of moves before the deadline and make a run at this. And I think what they decide to do over the next, let's just say 2 weeks, is going to be very telling on how they perceive this team to be. I think there's issues throughout. Obviously, quarterback is huge. It's glaring. It's the focal point right now. It's the huge storyline. I think, obviously. But there's a lot of issues here. I think that the offensive play calling is the worst that we have seen with Kevin Stefanski. I think the offensive line has been really bad, even with the talent there, and even with Jedrick Wills out there today and DeJuan Jones. This this is not a good offensive line. Let's not kid ourselves. They were a little bit better today than they were, but I mean, they still give 7-8 sacks on the day. Like, it's not good. Some of that given Deshaun Watson not being decisive with the football, but overall, the offensive line is not the offensive line of 2-3 years ago. Defensively, you can't count on it. Sure, there's a lot of talent that can go out and make plays, but you cannot rely on this defense in the way that you could last year. This is not a young football team. I think the past, let's just say 2, 3, 4 years that we've been doing this podcast, Dustin, we said, hey, we've got to give this team some grace. This is a young football team. They're still learning how to put things together. They're still learning how to go out there and stack wins. Just put, not only win, but string together a few wins. They're still learning how to do that. One thing to remember is that's not the case anymore. This isn't necessarily a young football team. This is a team that has a lot of veterans on it that have been there before. It just seems to me that they're just totally checked out, and it starts at the top. Circling back to your point, it starts at the top. I think the biggest problem with this team is obviously a lack of identity, but a lack of accountability and leadership. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I caught just a smidget of Stefanski's press conferences. He made his press availability right after the game, and he said, "Yeah, we're doing a lot of things wrong, including coaching stuff." So he immediately took the blame for it. But Allie, I think this team had barely 200 yards of offense today, and I think the Commanders had over 400 yards of offense in this football game. I mean, that's 2 to 1. That's crazy to me. Like, that's not the. You usually want 200 passing yards from your quarterback, not 200 total yards of complete offense in a football game. So yeah, there's, and here's the other thing. We talked about this last week, and if they ever need it now, they need it more than ever. Whatever decisions holistically are made after tomorrow, and whatever the organization, Andrew Berry, we know this is a owner that likes to get involved, and he will. I mean, he's going to have a say in this because he is paying this quarterback a lot of money. After those decisions are made, I really do think this team needs to have a players-only meeting with no coaches in there, and they need to really say who's in, who's out, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't want to be here, we can trade you. I mean, those kind of things, they just need to talk to each other as a whole, as a team, and don't let the coaches in and say, look, this is what the organization chose after whatever Monday brings tomorrow. And we need to set and have a meeting on Tuesday or whenever they feel appropriate, where the players just go in and have a conversation. And it's got to be frank, like who's going to buy in, who's going to be with us the rest of the season, and who doesn't want to be here. Because I think that's the problem. I think that's where, you can only coach. I mean, you can only scheme guys, right? You can always coach, but if you can't execute, if you have a great game plan and your team can't execute it, that's not going to work either, right? So I think there's a lot of blame to go around. I mean, last week we could say there was a couple plays here or there that could have went better, play calling wise. But this week, like you said, just off-thrown balls by Deshaun Watson, just throwing it, at people's feet. There's just something. And the offensive line it was hodgepodge together, more of what we're normally used to looking at the offensive line today. But you bring up a good point about Myles Garrett, and it just made me think about this. Why Myles Garrett in that defensive front sometimes doesn't get to the quarterback, because quarterbacks are getting the ball off quickly. I just feel like Deshaun's sitting back there and just not, making that quick, boom, 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 right? And getting that ball out. It's just he's hanging on to the ball too long, right? And then he's just getting crushed, right? Because you took an extra 2 or 3 seconds, and guess what happens? Here comes your defensive lineman coming in and just destroying him. So I think he's just not even getting the ball off quick enough, right? I mean, that was one of the things I saw today. I was like, he's just not even getting that ball. I mean, yeah, sometimes he's running for his life, but sometimes he's sitting back there kind of checking his reads, and then all of a sudden he's just getting crushed. You got to be more aware of that, from a quarterback standpoint, because as we know, the National Football League is much faster, it's much quicker. Things come at such a high speed that you got to get that ball out of your hands, because then you don't get smashed.
And then there's a couple other things, right? Having 2 almost consecutive drives with 12 men on the field, offensively having too many men in the huddle. Turning it over to the first half, though, they went 25 plays for 36 yards, and they were 0-7 on third downs in the first half, averaging 1.5 per play. Holy crap, that's really bad. That is really, really bad. Let's go
1.5.
yeah, let's go through some stats here. Deshaun Watson on the day, 15 of 28 for 125, one touchdown. He was sacked 7 times with a quarterback rating of 77.2. Jameis Winston, he was only in for just a brief amount of time. He went 1 for 16 yards. The rushing attack on the day, the team had 23 carries for 104 yards. The longest on the day was 25. Jerome Ford, he had 9 carries for 47. Deontay Foreman, 9 for 44. Deshaun Watson carried the ball 3 times for 14 yards. Now, the passing attack, like we said, it's kind of hand in hand with Deshaun Watson's struggles versus also the receivers and just the pass catchers, not being able to maintain the ball or execute the plays. Amari Cooper, 4 receptions for 60 yards. His longest on the day was 19 yards. Jordan Akins, 3 for 22. Deontay Foreman, 1 for 16. So one thing here, when we look at the leading pass catchers, I mentioned Amari Cooper, and then tight end Jordan Akins, and then running back Deontay Foreman. We're not getting the ball to your elite playmakers. Jerry Jeudy, he had 1 catch for 16 yards. David Njoku, I know he's just coming back from injury, 1 for 14. Elijah Moore, 3 for 11. It's just, yes, it's Deshaun Watson, some very serious struggles, but also, man, just can't make plays when the opportunities are there. Deshaun Watson fumbled once on the day. Martin Emerson Jr. He obviously forced a fumble there. And then you turn it over to Washington. Jane Daniels, 14 of 25 for 238, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times on the day with a quarterback rating of 85.1. Rushing, he actually led the team in rushing, 11 carries for 82 yards. Austin Eckler, he just looked like a force that couldn't be stopped. 6 carries for 67 yards. He was averaging 11.2 per carry. That's insane. Jerry McNichols, 7 for 44. Brian Robinson Jr., 7 for 18 with 2 touchdowns on the day. Their pass catchers, Terry McLaurin, who we know is an elite receiver, but just went off 4 receptions for 112 yards. De'Ami Brown, 2 for 57, 1 touchdown. Austin Eckler also played a part in the pass catching game, 2 for 30. And then Luke McCaffrey, 3 for 19. Just dominated, right? The Washington Commanders just absolutely dominated. And if you watch the Wednesday show, for whatever reason, I thought that the Browns could win this game. I did. I thought that the matchup was good.
Mhm.
I thought Joe Schwartz would totally confuse.
And he did in the first half. And he did.
He did. They couldn't stick with it. I really did think that the Browns were going to just figure it out in this game, kind of get things headed in the right direction. Good God, was I wrong? Good God.
Yeah. It was, yeah, it's just, I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow. This fan base, like I said, if I'm doing a test, they were not happy today. They,
no.
And I mean, where they weren't happy was to the point they know there's really good players on this football team, right? They were like, this is unacceptable for a team with this many good players, right? Like that was kind of their takeaway. It's like they're too good to be this bad, right? So like that's why we talk about holistic changes, right? You're too good to be this bad, so you've got to change something because it's that bad. Like something's went awry, and we don't like to speculate on this show, but Allie, what do you think happens tomorrow?
If I'm being honest, I really don't think anything. That's not really the answer.
Which is not good.
Which I think is kind of a scary thought. I think something has to happen tomorrow. I just don't think it does. I think that they'll take it to the bye week, or maybe they will just try to get it through this season. But I think what the Browns team, and that means the front office, coaching staff, players, what this organization decides to do over the course of the next week will be very telling on what's going to happen this offseason, right? If we're going to be making a top 5 draft pick and trying to go get Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, or Shador Sanders, right? And talking about new head coaches, or if we're saying
Richie Manning, right?
Yeah. Or, well, I mean, he's not going to be available, but, or saying Do we give Coach Stefanski another Coach of the Year because he somehow got this team to the playoffs again? I think that the next week is going to give a ton of perspective on the direction that this organization is heading.
Yeah, but
It's
but Alec, I feel if they don't make a change, this fan base is going to revolt. And
yeah,
and I say,
100%.
and I say that because here's the one thing that you hear from former players and people. You know what they say about Browns fans? Not only are they passionate, they're smart, and they understand football. If you know what I'm saying here, like this is a team that galvanizes themselves. This city loves their teams, the Guardians. By the way, shout out to the Guardians. Shout out to the Guardians. Let's let our Guardians going 7-0 yesterday against the Detroit Tigers. I said it on this podcast. That is the next championship in this city is the 2024 Cleveland Guardians. I said it early, and I'm going to say it often. They're a damn good, best bullpen in baseball. But this city loves their teams. And you know what they also do? They get deep like Ali does into the nuances of the players and the stats and stuff. They're smart fans. If there isn't a change, these fans are going to flip out, Ali. And I'm telling you, they're going to flip out. Like, they're going to be like, are you kidding me? We're just going to keep thinking this is okay? Like, it's unacceptable. Like,
Yeah, I would be.
I agree. And I agree. You are right. They could just say, hey, look, da 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 da. We're gonna look at the tape. That'll infuriate fans as well.
Oh yeah.
But I'm just saying, if something doesn't drastically, or I don't even saying drastic, but semi-drastically change, it's just gonna be it's just gonna get worse every game, right? To where it's gonna be ugly. And I think that's why I think something has to happen.
I agree. I don't like that answer of nothing happening. I don't want that. I want something to happen because it has to. This is embarrassing. This is awful. Mike, I see it. We've got another wasted season here if this is how this plays out. I agree. I hate the idea of just saying, all right, this is what it is. Let's go with it, because you've asked way too much of Browns fans. Way too much to go back 6 years and say, hey, you have to sit through 1-15, 0-16, and then in a few years you're going to ethically and morally decide which quarterback you want to root for. And to have kind of a split like that, they have asked way too much of Browns fans. They deserve better. Browns fans deserve better. They deserve accountability. They deserve leadership. They deserve a good football team. And the product that they're putting out on the field is simply unacceptable. And I agree entirely with that. But just based off of what we know of this front office, this regime, is they don't typically give emotional reactions. It doesn't mean that something is not going to happen, but right. I don't think that they're going to make a decision based off of what the fans want.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, this is a fan base that, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. I don't know. It's just not, I just can't, here's the truth. Like, you lose games in the NFL, right? Sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. I got to see firsthand, we'll call it a Phantom Raiders, holding call that I think Cooper should have got that touchdown. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Balls bounce off your chest and fortunately land in the hands of defenders. Those kind of things just happen. Those are fluke plays. Mm-hmm. But what we saw today was a complete breakdown of a football team that just kind of just gave up in this football game. And that's never what you want to see from a team, especially this early in the season. And that's why I think something's got to change. And I don't know, but I hope for the sake of this franchise that those conversations are happening, because I look back at the Denver Broncos thought Russell Wilson was going to be their savior, right? They thought he was going to come in, be that quarterback that he was in Seattle, and lead them to the playoffs. And guess what they realized? He wasn't, right? They said, you know what? He's not, and we got to move on. And guess what? They survived, right? They figured it out. They got rid of him.
What they did? They took the brunt. They said, yes, we just made the worst trade in NFL history, but we're going to move off of it. And now we are the worst trade in NFL history, which is true by far. I don't think anybody can dispute that. Let's just do it. And I don't I don't know what the answer is. I will say that. I don't know who you move off of first, what you do first, what direction you go, and that's, why we're just behind the microphone talking about the Browns not actually making these decisions. But I think it is apparent that the way it is currently constructed is not working. And if us fans can have those conversations openly and honestly, we hope and pray that that's the case for the organization. Dustin, let's go before we wrap up. Just go around the NFL real quick. Some things happened on the day. The Vikings beat the Jets, kind of in a close one in London, 23-17. The Bears absolutely just demolished the Panthers, 36-10. The Dolphins come away with one in Foxborough, 15-10 over the Patriots. The Jags get their win. They beat the Colts 37-34. And a big one here, the Texans come away on the day 23-20 over the Bills. Deshaun Watson. Josh Allen with a nasty hit. Hit his head, went unconscious for a minute, then came right back in. It was kind of a scary scene there. The Ravens in overtime beat the Bengals 41-38. So, I mean, if you're a Bengals fan, like you're in the same situation, you're 1-4. What conversations are they having in Cincinnati? The funny thing is they have the buy-in though. Those fans are bought in to Joe Burrow being the answer. Maybe they're totally out on Zach Taylor, which is fair, and they probably are. But at least they have the answer quarterback and saying, hey, we still believe that Joe Burrow is going to get us there. I think the difference between Bengals fans and Browns fans is we can't say that. We don't have the guy. And I don't think anybody feels comfortable saying that. In Denver today, it's currently the 2-minute warning. Raiders and Broncos are tied at 10. The Niners are up 13-10 over the Cardinals with 5 minutes to go in the first half. Giants Seahawks tied 7-7 with 5 minutes to go in the first half. And the Packers and Rams are tied 7-7 with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. So I'm excited to go watch some football, but
you want to go watch some competitive football?
all I got.
Hey, Allie, we talked about this before we started. Hey, we still have our college football teams to root for on Saturday, which gives us some balance. You've got your Buckeyes. I got my Boise State Broncos, and Genty put on another clinic the other night. They pulled him in
the trophy now.
They pulled him at halftime, basically, because he had 200 yards.
He's crazy.
Yeah, hey, Browns. You need a running back next year. I know a guy that's in the Heisman race. Just putting that out there.
He's winning the Heisman. Like he is winning. Give him the trophy now. That is unheard of. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think he has 16 touchdowns on the season. Yeah, 16
games. That's insane.
Well, he's on pace to come close to breaking Barry Sanders' record.
Yeah, he is.
The hollowed single season record, which is insane to me. So.
Yeah, some crazy stuff going on.
Hey, Al, you know it'd be fun? Boise State. Now, come on, this would be epic. Boise State and Ohio State in a playoff game. Like, we'd have to be there for that. Like, that would be epic.
No way. I'm not going to that.
You don't want to go to that?
No way. I will sit on my couch. I don't believe in going to big games. I don't.
Really?
Put me on the couch. Thank you.
Really? You don't want to be in a big playoff game like that? No. Okay.
I don't love going to football games.
Okay, Allie, what's the biggest game you've been to in your life? And it could be baseball. I mean,
I went to Detroit Broncos last year. That was kind of crazy. I don't love going. I like watching the game from my house. I don't love going to games.
Have you ever been to a playoff game? Let me just put that. Okay.
No.
Because I personally am excited to go watch the Guardians tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be great, and it's just not my vibe. I prefer to be comfortable in my house and be able to just go jump in the pool if I have to. If I get too stressed or do anything crazy, I'll do that. But no, I'm not really much of a go to a sports venue for my teams, anyways. I think it's a lot of fun. We went to a couple of weeks ago. We went to Auburn. That was a lot of fun. I got this hat actually.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. They did a great job. But when it's like my teams, like the Browns, the Buckeyes, I'd really rather watch those big games at home, just so I can kind of take it all in and spend it with my family. But
you looked miserable while we sat in the Winking Lizard watching that Michigan Ohio State game.
I don't like going to bars. I don't do that. I want to be in my house.
You were like, can we just please leave? You're like, You were out of your element. You're like, I am not enjoying this.
I
I'm
don't
not
want to
liking
talk to anybody. No, I'm not interested. I want to.
Yeah, because you want to go vent and throw something at the wall, right?
I want to be with the dogs.
Anybody that was watching the show today, and Allie, I did not tell you about this, but we were able to and had the opportunity to get one single ticket to the playoff game tomorrow. We put a contest out there on our page, so I will give that away after the show. I will announce the winner. Sorry, we said 4:00, but after the show, I will go out and pick a winner to go watch that playoff game tomorrow. So congratulations. We'll let you know who that winner is to go watch some Guardians baseball and lift your spirits after watching the Browns today. You can go watch the Guardians. It'll put you in some good spirits. So
yeah, it'll be great. All right, Dustin, any closing thoughts as we wrap up on a beautiful Sunday afternoon?
Cleveland Browns, fix it.
Yep. That's it. All right, and we are done. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans,